Dumb, cool,
Weird.
podcast.
And it was like people were divided based on the troops. They weren't divided based on the fact that these politicians were sending young men to die.
Well, it's very interesting because there's always a side to everything.
Yeah.
You know, my ex-girlfriend grew up in Soviet Russia, right?
Oh, yes.
And she told me that the propaganda over there was the same propaganda that we got, except it was just told differently. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is a perspective I never had before, you know? And she told me that, like, over there they'd be like, oh, well, those capitalist pigs are this, and this, and they don't care about people. They hate people. Just like over here, they're like, well, those are commie assholes who kill their own people and don't care about this,
Yeah.
and this. It was, so the programming was there. But at the end of the day, she still knew, and her mom still knew this was a better country to live in.
Yeah.
So they'd moved here. And I remember, so this is an interesting story from her. I remember when my ex-girlfriend told me that the first time we went to a party, she met a white girl who was all for communism, right? Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend at the time was like, that is not a good idea. And she's like, what do you know? You don't know anything about communism. What do you know? And my girlfriend was like, I grew up in communist Russia. Like,
Yeah.
grew up in the Soviet Union. Like, it's like, that's not a good place to live. Like, people were literally starving to death, and like
Yeah.
cars were getting stripped of like metal. Like, if you left it on the curb for more than 20 minutes, people were getting killed like left and right, and nobody really gave a shit, you know? And the girl was just like, well, that's not real communism. And my girlfriend was like, look, you don't understand. Like that's what the government told us it was. And they tried to enact that stuff, but it just didn't work. And she was like, the reason why, she told that girl, she's like, the reason why I wanted to come here is because there's more opportunities here to do your own thing, you know?
Yeah.
And they kind of went back and forth and argued. But I find it so fascinating that somebody like that girl who had never lived in a country like that was arguing with my girlfriend who
from
had
there.
lived it.
Yeah.
Lived it.
It's
Telling her that she's like privileged and all that. It's like, my girlfriend wasn't privileged. My girlfriend grew up in a fucking third world country. She grew up in fucking Ukraine,
yeah.
which is a very bad place to live in a lot of parts of it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, she grew up like an hour or so away from Chernobyl, you know?
It's crazy because it's like my mom even remembers when the conflicts, like the genocide that happened in Serbia.
But you got to understand, though, my girlfriend told me so many stories that made my skin crawl. My girlfriend saw her dad get stabbed to death by the Russian mafia in front of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that stuff happened all the time over there. And that was all in the name of communism, you know? And that's, like, hearing that perspective from her makes me, like, really turned off by that idea, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like when the Soviet Union fell apart, my mom had a friend that she grew up with and everything. He joined the army. Mm. Well, he went over when they had the conflict in Serbia, and he almost lost a leg. He almost lost his leg there, stepping, I think it was on a landmine or an IED.
Yeah.
And he was taught, and she said it was just like, it was crazy because that was like one of those times where they saw another mass genocide in their generation.
Well,
and
this
is kind of what happens with with our family, is like, you know, being from Italy and Greece and everything, they got to sort of see what fascism does.
Yeah.
It's like my grandfather hid from the Nazis. And because they were killing the men in the village or rounding them up.
Well, the funny thing is, I just read an article recently. I think I might have shared it with you. I don't remember, but it was about that. It was that woman that lived in Austria, and she said that Hitler came. Like, she grew up during when Hitler was in power.
Yeah,
when she was a kid, and she said she remembers it. She said everything was great at first. They offered them free health care, free everything, and then little by little, they started stripping away their rights. And she said it wasn't like this.
Oh, yeah, it's a
she
gradual
said,
thing.
She said if it would have been like that, they would have put up a fight. There would have been a huge fight. Like, they would have, like, died on that hill, basically.
Yeah.
But she said because it happened over the course of 6 or 7 years, they had everything taken away from them. And it got to the point where people were being punished because they disagreed. At first, they weren't punished. They weren't
Yeah.
punished right away. They were just told, well, you shouldn't do that. But then, like, after a couple of years, it was like, oh, this person got thrown in jail. We don't know where the hell they went.
Yeah.
And it was that's kind of like this lady was basically giving her account of what it was like growing up in Austria during a pre-Hitler
Yeah.
occupation and a post-Hitler occupation. And everything because it was all done under the guise of socialism, is what she said.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you look really at the way the Nazis worked too, their social welfare programs were only possible through expansion and invasion of other countries where they drained them of resources too. So it's
But that's what she said. She said
Yeah.
like everything was cool at first, like women were given these rights, all these things were given. But she said that like at the end of the day, though, everything was taken away at the end of the day. And she said she's not saying that this is what's going to happen in this country, but she said just take a history lesson from her and
Yeah.
listen to her, listen to what she has to say. And that article was really interesting because it's really cool to hear somebody's perspective that lived a situation like that.
Well, here's the next thing that we might want to get into as well. Have you ever noticed that maybe the reason there's such a big cultural shift and maybe a divide on how we view things like fascism or communism now as acceptable ideas is because we no longer have those elderly people who, like from the World War II generation, who had to encounter it head on as their enemies.
Yeah.
Like, we aren't exactly like those were our grandparents growing up. Is
Yeah.
like that generation that had to deal with those kinds of people.
Yeah.
And now, and I think the reason everything is like also changing in terms of your ideas on what is acceptable in terms of embracing communism or fascism now is because we're being raised like the Generation Z is like being raised by people who don't see a problem with it.
Well, it's almost like they forgot, some people hate Jordan Peterson, love him or hate him, People either love him or hate him. But he did mention one time that the reason why these ideas are becoming popular now is because people have forgotten. He said even with his generation, people have forgotten about what the repercussions of those types of things were back in the day.
Yeah.
He said he only knows the things because he did the research,
Yeah.
But it's a scary thing because, it's like my girlfriend said.
Yeah.
She said that communism sounds really nice on paper, like when you read about it. But she said she understands that human beings are very
Fallible.
corrupt.
Yeah.
And it leads to really bad things. I'm not saying capitalism is perfect.
No.
It has a lot of problems. I hate crony capitalism, man.
Because every system it allows you to be corrupt either way.
I hate it. I hate crony capitalism. I wish there was more checks and balances in place so shit like that doesn't happen. Like monopolies, crony capitalism. I don't agree with any of that fucking crap. I don't like it.
We could always just leave and go to Norway eventually.
Yeah, we could do that. But I just know that I don't think capitalism is perfect. I definitely don't think communism or socialism is perfect at all.
I think I think it's like the problem though is that when we look at socialism as it was weaponized to going past having like social safety nets and social welfare programs to better people. It went to just becoming this whole political ideology where it's like we're just going to give you stuff if you put us in power versus just helping you so that you don't fall into the cracks of society.
Well, it's like, one time I was talking to my buddy. He had he has these cousins, and we went and hung out, and they asked me what I thought about Karl Marx. They asked me like straight up what I thought about Karl Marx, and I said, he was a German philosopher. He had some ideas about economics and politics. Yeah. I don't think he was a bad person. I just think he wrote a book about how things could work with these certain types of systems. And I still stand by that. I don't think Karl Marx. People think Karl Marx was evil. I don't think Karl Marx was evil. I just think he was just
kind of like a hippie philosopher at the time.
Yeah, just like a philosopher. like his ideas are cool, but the people implementing the ideas were evil. You know?
I mean, Karl Marx was a bit of a racist dick too, though.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah, he had a lot of racist writings too, like where he talks about like where he actually
I learned something new today.
where he actually like talks about like different races and like there were like he has like the beliefs in social Darwinism and everything.
Oh shit!
It's pretty,
okay, I already know where that's going. Social.
So it's like it's like if you embrace like the ideas of Marx, it's like you also have to realize that you're kind of embracing some of his other ideas because.
Well, I guess I must have read just like the really interesting cool ideas, not the really shitty fucking racist fucking garbage ideas.
Well, I mean, it's like if you look at the way that the Nazis, for example, they ran their economy. I mean, our president FDR took those ideas and turned them into New Deal ideas, to where everybody's got a job, everyone has like a place to be, like it created a system that worked. But the thing was that they soon realized that unfortunately they kept all that stuff in play, and that's kind of what keeps us in a bit of an issue that we have now, because they were supposed to abandon them, but they just decided to keep them.
The interesting thing is, when I was born, the Cold War was still going on.
Yeah.
The Cold War ended in like what, 92?
91. 91 was officially when it ended, but there was still, the problem was after the Soviet Union fell apart, there were so many other conflicts that the Russians got involved in.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, is that because shoot, even Russia had armed conflict in its own country.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I just know that, growing up for me, I was born when the Cold War was still going on.
Yeah.
I remember learning about the Cold War in elementary school. And then I remember going into middle school, and I remember, thinking that, learning that the Cold War was such a terrible thing. And then I remember my views and stuff changed from thinking about that so much to thinking about the Middle East, because when I was in 2001, when I was in 6th grade, that's when the terrorist attacks happened. And then I remember that was something I focused on. And then I remember going into high school, I stopped caring about that as much because it kind of became a thing of the past.
Or it just became the norm.
The norm, yeah. So I get, not a thing of the past, but it became the norm. So like you didn't really think about it as much anymore. And then I remember I almost joined the military myself in the Navy. But I remember when I graduated high school, I kind of moved into, going to college, and that's when everything started becoming more socially active and liberal, because that's when the internet started becoming more popular.
Yeah.
The internet really blew up after that. And that's when I got my first smartphone in 2009. And that's when everything started changing, and like relationships started becoming more and more like fair weather relationships, like I talked about earlier. And I just remember, like, just to kind of round things out up to now, things have gotten to the point where we just can't have dialogues anymore with people. People just get too mad and don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because we realize that we need to be united, even if we don't agree with each other. Like we've misused words so much in this era. Like we'll call anyone a racist or a Nazi now because they disagree with your ideology, and it's like, and the same goes when like somebody calls you like a libtard or a communist.
Exactly.
It's like, but these are the minority that are shifting the political scene.
Yeah.
And it's bringing us to the place that we're at right now. I mean, because at least you had the 90s and the early 2000s, people were still pretty moderate and pretty much open to at least talking about their disagreements.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was also part of the news becoming more sensational over time. I mean, it reached a new level of sensationalism in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Then it got even further in the 90s. And then when the 2000s happened, it's not even news anymore. It's pretty much just how they can grab ratings.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out the Dumb Cool Weird podcast. Go to our website, www.dumbcoolweird.com, to check out our merch and all our social media links. If you want to check out how to support us and our audio podcasts only, and an access to our website and all of our other links for our social media, go to linktree.com, which has Dumb Cool Weird Podcast. The link is up below. Hope you guys will check us out. We have new content coming out every single Monday. We have new content coming out every single day. Check it for 9 a.m. Clips, reactions, whatever. We got it coming for you. Hope you come out, check it out. Stay sexy, Atlanta, and keep watching our crap.